Special shout out to Adam Korlick. Now, for those of you that don't know, he's got a channel and we'll be linking it in the description below. He's been breaking all of the news lately on Shenmue and the HD remasters and all that fun stuff. If you want to learn more about his stuff and everything that's going on and everything about Shenmue, go follow him on his channel below. We finally have a release date for Shenmue I and II, the HD remaster. But not only that, we got some info about what's going to be in this game to begin with.
Facts, 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 hot take!
There's been a lot of gamers out there that have been looking forward to seeing Shenmue I and II come back again on modern systems on the PlayStation 4, Xbox One, and the PC.
Yeah, and folks like me that want to try out those games for the very first time, because I only played the first Shenmue just a little bit, this is the perfect step into the series.
Yeah. Now, this isn't like a big deal that Adam hadn't played these. A lot of people hadn't played them. It was released on the Dreamcast. The Dreamcast honestly didn't do the best it could have. And then when they eventually brought Shenmue II to North America, we didn't get it on the Dreamcast, we got it on the Xbox.
Yeah, and I feel like that just flew by a lot of people, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah. It was a little bit of a weird thing, but hey, that's just how it is. Anyway, so all that taken into consideration, we decided that we were going to make a video that talked about everything we know so far about it, including a whole fact sheet that they just released, and the announcement of the date. So the date is going to be August 20th.
August 20th. So it's not that far away. We're just a little over a month away.
Yeah. So basically what you're going to get is a remaster of the first game and the second game. And I'm pretty excited about this. There's some questions we don't know enough about yet. We don't have answers to, but what we do have are a list of things that we've written down here that we're going to be covering right away. So first off, we know that at least with Shenmue 2, it's taken from the Xbox source code. So what that means is this version of the game isn't the one that was released on Dreamcast, it's the one that came out later on.
Yeah, the Dreamcast version was only Europe and Japan?
Yes.
Okay.
And the European version originally had a Japanese voiceover. It didn't actually have the English one. It was with the Xbox release that we got that.
Right.
Now, in the original Xbox version, there was also a snapshot system. There's some filters that you didn't see in the original. And there's also some texture bitmaps that were included for improved anti-aliasing performance. And you're getting that exact version over on this remaster.
Yeah. So you were talking a little bit about the Japanese and English sort of voice tracks, right? We are going to be getting Japanese and English, I believe, for both of these games, right?
So you're going to be able to choose, which is really cool because for a lot of gamers out there, they didn't actually get to hear this game in its original Japanese, so this is going to be a really cool way for us to basically do that.
Yeah, I think that's the way I'm going to play through it the first time, because it's such a Japan-centric game. Like, I want to have that all-encompassing sort of feel when I'm playing through the first time.
Yeah. Now, the Xbox version of the game did have some other graphical differences compared to the original Dreamcast release, but as far as we're aware, you're only going to be seeing those Xbox changes. You're not going to see the original Dreamcast release stuff, which, from what I remember, it's not like massive things. It's just tiny pieces here and there. But regardless, overall, you're getting a facelift of the game actually running in 4K resolutions in most instances, or at least 1080p where it's available.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't play. Of course, I didn't play the European version of Shenmue 2. I can't compare the two, but I'm assuming that the Xbox version just played better. Usually, like, when things came to Xbox, the original Xbox, it was the best version of those games. Do you know? Well,
I guess the best way to explain it is the original Shenmue 2 would have been on multiple GD-ROMs.
Yeah.
So now it was on one DVD-ROM, right? So that's why you could actually compress all that data into one disc.
Yeah.
So I think that was an improvement. And obviously now we're dealing with everything on one disc, both games completely, which is crazy when you think about that now. But if you're getting it in a digital download, you don't have to worry about that stuff. But again, just one disc as far as we're aware.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about a few of the other features?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's a bunch of new stuff coming to this set as well. And
so at least for North American gamers, right? If you played the original Shenmue, you couldn't bring it over to the second one. There's game save elements that would actually transfer over to the second game. And because we didn't get that second version of the game out here, it didn't work. So now when you play Shenmue 1, the HD collection, and you bring your saves over to the second game, things actually move along with you.
Yeah.
Now that's really important. So we're actually going to get that. This is going to be the first time I've experienced that, because when I played Shenmue 2, it was on the Xbox version. Now, an interesting thing with the Xbox version is when it originally came out, it actually had a Shenmue movie. So it was a standalone disc. It was a DVD movie that you watched, and it would actually cover all the aspects that happened in a pretty minimal way of the first game. Because there's a lot that happens in the first game, but the movie tries to capture at least the beats of the story. Yeah. What's interesting is that they haven't mentioned if the movie is going to be included in this remaster. I hope it's unlockable.
Yeah, it could be an unlockable little treat, but it kind of seems a bit redundant because you have the entire game there.
It's true, but I think for people that really like the Xbox version, this was just a cool thing to have. And maybe it's not the best looking movie in the world, because it really isn't, but I just like that idea of having it there so that people can kind of get this recap of what happened in the first game.
And I like the idea of it being unlockable once you play through maybe the second game, because it's like, no, just play through the first one, play through the second one, and then maybe we'll give you some bonus content, and then you can kind of view this little nugget. You know?
Yeah. Now, another thing they're doing in this version of the game is they're actually including the ability to save anywhere in the game at any point. This is very important because that's not how it was in the original release of the game, and it's very kind of interesting to see them offer this, because I've always expected this kind of gameplay to offer instant saves whenever you felt like it, because sometimes the gameplay would go on for a really long time in certain aspects, and then if you couldn't get to a save state right away and you had to go somewhere, you'd basically have to pause your game and walk away.
Do you remember, were the save states like Rio's home? You'd go to your house to save? I would assume so.
It's been a long time, but like there were elements like that where you have to go to a certain zone.
Well,
to save
now it doesn't matter.
Yeah. So I'm very happy to see that be improved on the remaster. Now, another thing I'm also very excited to hear about is that, again, those HD resolutions are important, but they are having the game work in widescreen. Now, 16:9 aspect ratio has a very specific way that this works. Basically, when you're having gameplay moments, when you're walking around or certain sequences like that, those moments are going to be presented in 16:9. But cutscenes, as they were originally produced, were in 4:3, so they haven't made new cutscenes or anything. The game, as far as I'm to understand, those elements are still done in-engine, but it's 4:3 presented.
Okay, that was what my question was going to be. So they're in-engine. It's not like a separate...
Some are in-engine.
Okay, and some are separate sort of video files as well.
Yeah.
So
it just depends on what it was originally, right?
So they probably want to maintain that same aspect ratio from what could possibly be a video file to the in-engine stuff. They want to keep the same sort of cinematic feel,
From what I understood, the in-engine stuff will be at 4:3, but something that's interesting about this, and it's something that kind of sucks, but I understand... The game is being presented in 30 frames per second. That means 30 hertz. It's not going to be going to 60 hertz according to the FAQ that they released, which is unfortunate, but they said that it was because of the way the game was coded originally.
Yeah, it was hard coding.
Yeah, hard coded. Yeah. So they just can't go in there and change that. Even if they were to, what you would get is a very different experience overall, and the cutscenes likely would have looked really strange at a higher frame rate.
When we say 30 frames per second, is it 1 and 2? Or is it...
Yes, 1 and 2, both.
1 and 2?
Yeah. It sucks. You know, I know that a lot of people out there really want that 60 frames per second experience, especially on PC. And you know what? Hey, PC gamers, hard-coded or not, I know how you guys operate. I know how I operate. We could probably find a way around it. And I mean, it would be difficult, it'd be crazy, but as long as there's a PC version of the game out there, there's a better chance that that community will find a way to do it. But for at least PS4 and Xbox One users, and initially PC users, it's just going to be 30 frames per second.
If you fell in love with the original games, playing them again at 30 frames per second shouldn't be that jarring.
Yeah.
I mean, you should be familiar. So.
They also announced that there's going to be some new post-processing effects, so you're going to get some enhanced graphical abilities that are going to be happening as you play. They really didn't list what these are, but I imagine you're going to see things like cool lens flares, maybe some lighting, stuff like that. You never really know.
Who are you, J.J. Abrams?
Yeah. It's just, you never really know what they're talking about when it comes to this kind of stuff, but all you really need to know is that the game is just going to look a little bit better than it did when you originally played it. From what I could tell from the trailer that they showed off of the new releases, the textures seem to be pretty much the same. There doesn't seem to be a lot of differences in model work. It really, realistically, just seems to be the Dreamcast and Xbox versions of the game just brought over without much extra work done there.
Yeah, it's kind of like sometimes when you look at games that have had a newer port made, it's like the rose-tinted glasses style, where like when I did see that trailer, I was like, it looks just like I remember, and like it's not at all. It's like 16:9, and it is, you know, it does look better. It's not so jaggy, I guess. Yeah,
but that's just because of the higher resolution.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, that's all I really cared about personally. I didn't really want the game to look too different because I really wanted to feel like the original. Yeah. So we're getting that feel there. Now, something else that's very interesting is that this game is actually giving you the ability, because it's on PC, to use a mouse and a keyboard, which was something you didn't have in the past. You don't really think about that too much, but this game had to be done in a different way to make it work that way. Now, they haven't really talked about controller support in terms of camera movement and stuff like that. Do you have like a secondary controller stick that can move around with the camera, but I'm just going to assume that that is there.
I did read something about them supporting newer controllers, and I think you used to control the protagonist Rio with the D-pad, and now you can control it with like a thumbstick. The camera, I don't know. But it is very cool that you have like a fully configurable keyboard now that you can like do whatever you want with and play Shenmue.
With PC gamers, you know, that's something we typically come to expect anyway, so it's not really like a crazy idea there. But again, it's something that I think is very important, and we need that kind of stuff to happen.
It's nice to have it already built in.
And you know, I really hope that we actually have configurable controls when we go to play the PlayStation 4 and Xbox versions. I hope that's built in so that we can just make it feel like the way we want it to.
Yeah, they didn't say anything about that, just the keyboard itself right now, but maybe that is going to be an option. I'm not sure.
It would be really cool if we had the ability to use USB Dreamcast style controllers so we can play the game the original way. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen. There wasn't a lot there on the Dreamcast that I think we're missing now. There's a lot of stuff that happened in the original Shenmue that we're probably not going to see in this remaster. There was a lot of additional elements, separate discs that were released. There was VMU stuff.
That's what I was going to ask you right now. So do you remember? Was there some sort of a VMU integration
it was like tiny little things.
Like it just showed like the little logo or whatever.
Stuff like that. You're probably not going to see that again
I
come
miss
back.
VMUs, man.
I mean, I would love to see that kind of stuff happen. Yeah. But from what I'm to understand, from what I've read so far, they're really just giving you basically an experience that is just going to cover the games and not really a heck of a lot else. But that's fine, right? This isn't like I didn't need it to do everything out there. And there's actually some strange discs that in the future we might talk about that are specifically for Shenmue, but they weren't actually released in North America that, you know, are interesting things. Now, another thing that they've talked about, which you would come to expect, is full achievement support. This is something that we really didn't think that was going to be a feature because, well, the original game didn't have that. And now we're actually going to get that. So there's going to be the ability to actually have achievements, which, you know, it's a very modern gaming thing, but I think a lot of gamers out there expect that now.
Yeah, it'll tell you when you've spoken to 100 sailors or have moved 75 boxes around a warehouse, something like that.
Pretty much. Now, the last thing that I'm incredibly excited about, because I expected this not to happen personally. There are points in Shenmue when you can actually walk up to arcade games, or believe it or not, in the first Shenmue, this isn't to spoil anything, the time period that the game takes place in doesn't make sense with this specific element, but in your house, or in Rio's house, there's actually a Sega Saturn, and you can get discs to play games on the Sega Saturn. And they're old arcade games. They're the ones you can actually find in the arcades in the game world. Now, what's interesting about this is these arcade versions were actually really well done.
Yeah, that's what I had heard. So, Space Harrier, Hang On, and there's a couple more.
There's a couple more too, yeah. But what's really interesting is that those games are going to be available on this version. They haven't cut them out, which is what I was expecting to happen. They're the real original games being represented on here. I really don't know what they've done here, but just to break off a little bit from Shenmue talk, let's talk about Yakuza, because Yakuza has the exact same idea. Yakuza is really like a spiritual successor in many ways. It's not the exact same game, but there's a lot of elements that feel the same. Now, in that series, you have the ability to go play games in arcades and stuff, but Sega did a really good job of making those games work on modern TVs by giving you scanline options, rendering options, and a whole bunch of other stuff you wouldn't expect them to do.
It seemed completely unnecessary, but they are there. So hopefully those elements are going to be in Shenmue as well, like being able to kind of play with the way that the games look.
And even if they're not, if it's just represented in like a 4:3 aspect ratio with just like, you know, black bars on left and right, I'd be cool with that.
Emulated well.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all I care about.
Yeah, that's what really matters.
And these are the arcade versions of the game. They're not like the Sega Genesis version or anything like that. So these arcade versions actually feel a little bit different. They're a little bit faster in many instances, and the graphics look better than the ones that were released on home consoles. At least of the time that we were expecting this kind of stuff to happen. If you wanted to get the real arcade experience at home, the Sega Saturn was really the first time that actually happened in a really good way. There was the 32X version, but that's getting into a whole other kind of conversation. All we really need to know is that those games are making a return. So Adam, hearing all this stuff, what are your thoughts? Do you think this is going to be the best way to play it?
For me, this is like I said, I only played maybe an hour or so, like years ago. When was the first game released? Do you know the sort of, kind of time frame? 2000?
Around the early 2000s.
Dreamcast only had 2 years. So
it really didn't go
pick one. But yeah, so for me, having only played just a tiny, tiny bit of this, it's like a whole new game for me, a whole new series. So I'm super duper excited because I have a touch of that nostalgia. I know about a few of the secrets and things, but I don't remember the story at all. I know a bit about the gameplay. It's a new and old experience kind of intermingled that I'm really looking forward to.
You know, I honestly forget a lot of the elements of the game, but I purposely held back. The moment I heard that Shenmue III was coming out, I wanted to basically pull myself away from reading about the game again and really getting into it. And everything I've been talking about has really been from memory association from having played it originally. I'm excited to play this game mostly because once I'm done 1 and once I'm done 2, I'll get a really good hunger for 3, which I kickstarted a while ago. So this is what I'm excited about.
You made 3 happen?
Yeah, I made 3 happen. A lot of people did.
I'm so
out there.
proud of you.
Jeez. Anyway, guys, are you excited for this remaster? Are you excited to see this? Are you a little upset that this game isn't going to be featured in 60 frames per second? Or maybe there's something else you heard that you really didn't like? Let us know in the comments below.
Hey, Shane.
Yeah?
What would your name be if your parents were cows?
Shenmue?
Hot take.